Hi, welcome to The Sacred Journey. The Sacred Journey is the program that reminds you that life is a wonderful adventure. Each and every experience we have is a unique and perfect opportunity for learning. I'm Joyce St. Germain, and I'm sharing time and space with my dear friend Rochelle Ripley. And this show is Hawkwing on the Res and Closer to Home. And you may, if you've been watching us a while, you may recognize Rochelle Ripley. She's the founder and the president of Hawkwing, known as hawkwing.org. She is a 2015 CNN Top 10 hero. And I've invited her to come back and share what we've been doing because it's been a while since we've chatted. So welcome, Rochelle.
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, it has been a while. I don't know how long. I define my entire life now by now, before, and in between, which is COVID. So
Well, you've been one of our longest running guests, and we've done many, many shows. And I thought it was time because we're involved in a lot of new things. I say I'm on the board of directors and honored to be a part of the group. But I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about what the organization is, including that it's a nonprofit, how long we've been up and running, and what's going on now, and
yeah.
what we've
Well,
done.
it's an amazing 22 years that we've been in operations, which actually kind of blows my mind. It's gone very quickly, much quicker than you think it would. We started in 1999 and were incorporated in 1999 as a nonprofit here in Connecticut, but we serve the Cheyenne River Lakota Sioux Indian Reservation in South Dakota. That is our major focus. And that came about because when I was a little girl, my Lakota grandmother asked me when I grew up if I would go home and help our people. If I could have given her the moon and the stars out of the skies, I would have done that. So of course I said yes, having no idea at age 5 what that meant. And I'd like to believe to this day she did not either.
Well, I think it's pretty extraordinary because I've been involved with the group since then, and to see how it started, how far we've come, and you're sure changing lives and healing hearts. I know that's one of the new designs. We have two new designs. That is really what I've witnessed happening. And having been out to the res with you many, many times and seeing the work that happens here, because you're based in Glastonbury, and a lot of people can't draw that connection. Like, well, wait a minute, why is this happening in Glastonbury and the work being done out there? Do you want to address that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the purpose of Hawkwing is to serve the people on the Cheyenne River Reservation. So if you were out on the reservation, it would be much more difficult to do the things we do because the resources are here in Connecticut and around the country. And we need to tap those resources in order to provide the programs and the items that families need in order to move forward. And that includes things like education and college scholarships and a whole lot of other more advanced thinking, and then the basics like food and housing.
So the foundation work happens here, but the benefit happens there. And we go there as a group. Many of us go there and actually do a lot of hands-on work, but so much of it has to happen here to affect there.
Correct. And one of the things for me that my grandmother said to me that day was that I was born into two different worlds, the native world and the non-native world, in order to bring those worlds together. So while the financial benefit of what's needed out there goes out to the reservation, there's also an overarching effect of people here in Connecticut and around the country learning more about the real historical facts and present day facts in Indian country. And that's as equally important because we want to get to the place where the truth is out in terms of what and how we got to where we are now as native and non-native people. So by bringing those cultures together, it gives us that opportunity as well.
Yeah, and in society, we see that happening now in schools and sports with mascots and team names and things like that. So the ball is rolling. It might be rolling more slowly in some places and in some ways, but it's rolling.
And since you brought that up, Joyce, the state of Connecticut, most people don't know this, but the state of Connecticut in the last legislative session passed a bill saying that you cannot have Native American imagery, logos, or mascots, or you will lose funding, some funding from the state of Connecticut. So that is helping to give a boost forward where there's an incentive to make that change.
Yeah, it's sad that it has to be that it is legislated, but it's good that it is, because sometimes that might make people say, I didn't realize, or I didn't know. If it just makes them pause and reflect, I guess that's
Yeah,
educational and that's
yeah.
good enough.
And it's
So
support from the state, so that's a good thing.
that's a very good thing. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done. Like, I know we've done some amazing thing with beds, and that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I know that you've shared that many elders had never had a bed.
Correct. And
Amazing.
since my work and my passion comes from my grandmother, I couldn't even imagine seeing my grandmother sleeping on a floor. And so that it struck me at such a core level when I was told this. I think it was the second or third year we were on the reservation. I met with the tribal attorney. I always ask, what can we do to help? I don't assume I should make those decisions. And so when he shared three objectives with me, the first was to preserve the stories of the elders. And I said, yeah, well, I can't do anything about that. And then because they're aging out, and like World War II veterans and Holocaust survivors, they are losing their stories when they go. The second was the beds. And to this day, I don't even think, under your able hands of hypnosis, I don't think I could remember what number three was, because I got so stuck on the beds. I
Yeah, well, that
couldn't.
was a big deal.
It was a real big deal. So we worked through United Way of America through one of their programs called Good 360, and they have corporate partnerships. And one of the partnerships is with Tempur-Pedic. And so we put our heads together, and Tempur-Pedic only charged us the cost of the delivery to the reservation. So over a 3-year period, we brought out, I believe it was 750 beds, Tempur-Pedic mattresses with the bed insert bedboard, the frames, the pillows, the linens, the mattress protector, and blankets to 750 different elders. And
Yeah.
some of those were doubles and some of those were singles.
And, when we think of sleeping on the floor, we go, oh, we've all had to sleep on the floor. So you get a nice pillow and a nice blanket, and it's a soft carpet. No, 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 no. We're talking wooden floors with the wind coming through, and not even like, oh, beautiful hardwood and things sealed up. The conditions there are challenging, is an understatement. So I remember the joy and the gratitude when we made those deliveries out on the res. It was
Let
incredible.
me share one quick story. I had an elder who I did not know, because it was only our 4th year out on the res. So I didn't know as many people as obviously I know now. And she walked into where we were staging, and she said, are you Rochelle? And I said, yes. And she said, can I talk to you? Usually when someone says, can I talk to you? It means that they need something. And she said, I had my neighbor drive me 25 miles here to get, the reservation is quite large, as you know, size of the state of Connecticut, shaped like the state of Connecticut. She had her neighbor drive her 25 miles to come to where we were so she could look at my face when she said, thank you. And she explained to me that she'd never had a bed of her own and never had a new bed. And she was so happy to have this bed. And then she was silent. And as you know, Joyce, from your interactions, a lot of times when elders will hold back, you have to sit in that silence with them until they're ready. And finally, after a few minutes, I said, grandmother, I feel like you have something you want to ask me. And it's okay to ask. No, no, she said, I already got a bed and all, and that's so much that I got. And I said, it's okay. I may be able to say yes or no, but tell me what you need. And she said, well, you wouldn't happen to have an extra blanket, would you? Because it gets cold, so cold, and I get so cold. She had not realized that the bag that came with the bed had the blankets, the pillows, the linens. And when I told her, I asked her, she said, yes, I didn't look yet. When I told her that there was a brand new bed quilt in there, one tear came down her cheek. And in the Lakota way, you don't show your emotions. Joy is fine, but you don't show sadness or fear. So she immediately got up and left. And I was grateful that I knew that. So I didn't think she was kind of just walking out on me. That to me was so moving, because we have beds, and it's nice. You get a new bed, you say, oh, this is really comfy, but you don't think of it as being just a luxury.
Yeah, and we've heard many stories of people we know, people who have died from exposure in their homes in the winter time.
Yeah. Well, it's not surprising when the temperatures out there in the winter are often as much as 35 to 40 degrees below zero with the wind chill. And you're talking uninsulated homes, as you described, with limited heat access. So it's really quite a difference from Connecticut, even though we may be shaped and sized the same way. That's about where the comparison ends.
Now, we work hand in hand with the tribal council and with the veterans out on the res. And, as you said, we ask what they need and we listen and we try to comply and assist and support as much as we can. I know that there are a lot of people here that go, well, I can't help. I can't go out to the res. There's nothing I can do. And I know that is completely untrue. How can people here help? And if you even want to be specific about some of the programs we have coming up, how they might help. And I know that in COVID times, we don't accept the same kinds of donations and our needs are different. They've changed. And we have had to change too with how we ask for help and what we ask for.
Yeah, that's so important for people to understand, because people a lot of church groups and a lot of schools were used to collecting gently used coats for the winter time. And the problem right now with COVID is you really shouldn't be handling that. And I'm concerned to send it out there, and possibly bring other things out there. And they certainly don't need that. So what we're asking people on the financial side, the giving side, is to please give cash, especially through, well, cash or check, whatever way you want to do it. But through this period of time, especially because we can do more with that cash donation than somebody giving us $20 worth of groceries, which is wonderful. And that is something we do accept. But that $20 that person spent on food, I can, because we are the agent for the tribe with the statewide food bank Feeding South Dakota. So I can buy 5.5 pounds of food for every dollar that's spent. So that $20, instead of buying 5 boxes of cereal, can buy, oh, I have to do higher math now, right? 110
Boxes of
110 pounds of food. So
Yeah.
your generosity quintuples and quadruples and does all those things in order for it to get the maximum amount out there. So while we fund the food coming from the food bank, and our retired veterans operated on the ground on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and to our viewers, make no mistake that as a nonprofit, we have been analyzed and what is the word I'm thinking? We have had to go through some really strict guidelines to meet the requirements, and there is a watchful eye on us. So I know a lot of people make donations that never get where they need to go.
Right.
Tell us about the water program. What we're
So
up our sleeve.
in Indian country broadly, and part of it is because of the lands that natives were pushed onto when the reservation system was set up by the federal government. Most of it is very poor land, whether it's in Navajo country in Arizona and New Mexico, whether it is in Lakota land up in South and North Dakota. These are areas that have very, very limited rainfall. So water access is always a big issue. The other part of that is that we're still in a situation on Cheyenne River where there are families who are still having to tote buckets of water into their homes because they don't have plumbing and they don't have access to a main water line. When our reservation was created, back in the early 50s, there was a pipeline that was put in by the Army Corps of Engineers to bring the water from the Missouri River down one central pipeline into where the people were relocated to. And the area where they're at, for the most part, is pretty much a desert. It's not, it's got some grasslands, but it's prairie. It's not rich, loamy land with lots of rain. So a lot of families, if they live off the pipelines, let's say 5 miles, 20 miles, you've been there, you know how far distant some of those homes are off the main Route 212, they don't have access to the pipeline. Some of them will start to get some access to the pipeline as the government is going to be redoing some of under infrastructure, some of those, but they still won't have plumbing in their house or the pipeline from their house to hook in. So we have a donor
They
who,
can't turn on a faucet
they
and
don't have
have water
faucets in
come home.
many,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
When I went out the very first time and I was helping with an elder who was feeding people, and as a joke, because they're very funny people, they like to tease. In my Jewish side, we say kibbutz, he likes to kibbutz. And she said to me, would you mind doing the dishes? I said, oh, no, I don't mind. And I got up and I walked into the house with the dishes and I just kept walking around the kitchen. There was no sink. And they were all standing in the doorway. And when I realized it, they all burst out laughing. But it's not a laughing matter. I mean, if you're living in a house without a sink, without a tub, that's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. So our donor who stepped forward is he's actually related to one of our other board members, Dr. Riley, and he stepped forward and he would like to fund clean water on the reservation. So we're working again collaboratively with the tribe, with their head of their water project, who's working to bring this federal money in and coordinate it all with the water company. And we'll be doing the piece from the pipeline to the homes that need to be, maybe a lot of renovations inside homes, but it's a really exciting project because it's going to bring a lot of relief for people.
Yeah, and let's let this sink into our viewers. We are filming this in December of 2021.
Correct.
There are families in the United States that do not have access to water.
Right.
In their
Right.
homes. I mean,
right.
In our times.
Yeah. It's hard to believe on one level, but there is so much underlying infrastructure in this country. Indian country being the poorest place makes it more expanded. But you look at Chicago, where you have lead pipes and the children have lead poisoning in the poor areas. So we have a lot of work to do.
That's all over the news. Where do we hear in the news
We don't.
about on the res? Okay,
Right.
and let's share some statistics, because it still blows my mind. Average life expectancy on the res.
48. That's 48 years.
48.
And I'm afraid it will go down due to the pandemic. But statistically, it's age 48.
Okay, correct me if my memory isn't serving me well. Incredibly high rates of suicide, diabetes, and addiction.
And cancers.
And cancers. Yeah.
The pandemic hit them very hard because not only, as all of us have been hit hard by it, but the fact that the underlying health conditions are so poor makes you more vulnerable to dying from COVID. So I fear we will see a reduction. And I mean, some of the people that we've lost were young women in their early 40s. And, it just it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking.
What's medical care like out there?
Well,
medical care and access to.
Okay, so one of the great benefits that we got during the Obama administration was President Obama gave money to the tribe to build a medical building. Now, it isn't a hospital, although it has a couple of hospital beds for interim. So you come in and you're having a heart attack, they stabilize you, and then they can get you off to a full service hospital.
How far away? How far
3 to 5, yeah, 3 to 5 hours away, pending where they have to go.
And people die en route.
They can die en route. We do also, through that funding, we were able to get a LifeStar platform put in. So LifeStar can land, and if it's available, and take the patient to the hospital. So the building that was built is beautiful. You've been in it, it has a full dental clinic, though very limited dental care is available. The clinic is huge, but the personnel are small. They do the best that they can. We've brought out, as you know, dentists in the past and dental hygienists, and we have an offer from an oral surgeon to go out on the next trip, whenever that may be scheduled, pending the pandemic. In terms of the facility, they have a tremendous turnover of medical folks, in large part because they come in to do their residency or their internship, and then they go back to Boston or New York or Texas, where they're going to be able to make a lot more money, or they may have a family and they want them in the best schools, and all of those reasons, like many of us made decisions about our lives. So access is difficult. They we had a project we did that not only built ramps, but also taught some of the veterans how to make an ADA acceptable ramp, because we had first heard 17 veterans could not leave their own homes due to their disabilities because they couldn't get out without a ramp, and there were no ramps. And so it then expanded to families with children in wheelchairs and elders in wheelchairs. So now I believe the number is now about 72 ramps have been built, some by Hawkwing volunteers, and then some by the people that are volunteers trained. And that has been a huge, so just getting out of your house was a problem, never mind getting to the facility. So the reservation is the size of the state of Connecticut, and it is literally shaped like the state of Connecticut. So imagine you're living in Cherry Creek, which in Connecticut would be like about where Greenwich is. To get to the medical facility, and even if you wanted to go down to Rapid City, which might be equidistant to a regular full hospital, you have to first go up to Eagle Butte and get checked in and certified that you're eligible to go to the other hospital. So from Cherry Creek up, providing it's not snowing, providing it's not mud season is probably the worst season out there. It's going to take you an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to the hospital under optimal circumstances. Then you first have to get checked in and checked, and then if you need to be transferred, then that's a whole nother several hours to get out. So it's really mixed. There's not a lot of prevention work, though they're working on that. Our community health representatives that we work very closely with, Nicole Whitewolf's staff and her, do as much as they can. They're not nurses, so they can do the outreach and get people to the services. And that brings up something that ties into another part of Hawkwing, and that's the free store.
Oh, good. I was hoping we'd have time to talk about that. Go ahead.
All right. So my daughter decided that she had heard about this concept of free stores, and she did some research. And what Jenny found was that the wife of the lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania started this in their area in Pennsylvania. So what a free store is, it's a place where you can go and shop, but you don't pay for anything. But it gives you the dignity of having shopped, picked out what you need for your family or for your home. And so it's not viewed as charity in the same way. We are blessed to have a contract with Amazon. I know Amazon can be controversial for people, but they're doing a good thing in that they do not throw away anything that they absolutely can give away. And we are the recipient in the central Connecticut area. We get, on average, 12 pallets. Each pallet has 20 of the big Amazon boxes on it. So 240 boxes every month filled with not just clothes, but household things, dishes, personal care products, toys. I mean, sometimes there's stuff we really can't use. Occasionally they send us political things, which we're not allowed to handle. So those have to go back, but it's saving, it's giving things that people practically can use. And as what Nicole and her staff did is they set up the free store with Jenny's help. They've set up the free store inside their offices in the medical building. So when people come in, and they call it incentives, but it's okay, you know, whatever you want to call it is fine. They can pick out a couple of items each time they come in, and what it's giving the staff is the opportunity to hand out prevention materials, or to say, do you want your blood pressure checked? We can send you over to you, so that they're getting more and more information out to people and referrals out to people, which is great. So that's a really exciting new concept, is combining the services along with the items that are being given. And she said people are loving it because they feel dignified in picking out what they need.
Well, let's end this episode, but I want to invite our viewers to know that there is a part 2, because we have so much more to talk about and so much more to share. Thank you, Rochelle. I know your schedule is so busy. Thank you for coming to share a little bit more about what
always
Hawkwing
enjoy our
does,
conversations. Always enjoy them.
what we hope to do. So thanks for joining us on the Sacred Journey. We'll
Thanks.
catch you next time.